Hi everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of Faith Brynels Insights. I'm Faith Brynels. Today we have Simranjeet with us. Hi Simranjeet, welcome to the show. Can you introduce yourself to the listeners, please?
Thank you so much, Faith Brynels. My name, as you said, is Simranjeet Kaur Mann. I am a trainee solicitor at a UK top 20 law firm, and on the side, I also do YouTube. I think YouTube is my main little baby. I love it so much, and I'm trying not to make it my personality trait, but it is slowly becoming a personality trait to just be like, hey, I'm a YouTuber. But yeah, that's what I do. And I talk about advice for aspiring solicitors. I talk a bit about my life as a trainee, and I like to talk a bit about personal development and just other vlogs and fun stuff as well.
Yeah, thank you, Simranjeet, for shedding an insight and some light onto what you do on your YouTube channel and what you're currently doing as well as a solicitor. You mentioned at a top 20 law firm, so congratulations on that achievement.
What
a wonderful achievement that is as well. And also on the side, you also have your YouTube channel and you're a vlogger as well, aren't you? And which we'll which we'll talk a bit more about in the episode and in the interview. So yeah, I just want to pick up out a few things that you mentioned. As part of the YouTube channel, you help aspiring solicitors. You kind of give an insight into your life as a trainee, and you talk about personal development as well. And I think personal development is something that's sometimes not talked about enough, and I'm glad that you stepped up to help people develop themselves and their skills so that they can get to where they need to be, whether it be academically or whether it be in terms of their mental well-being and things like that as well. So yeah, kudos to you there. So that's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad to have you here on the show today, where we can explore a bit more and talk to you a bit more about your journey and what you're currently doing. So, and I did have a little look at your YouTube channel. I must say, it does look very interesting. Yeah, I don't want to become a solicitor, but there were a lot of things there that I can personally, take information and help from. For example, you did videos about, there's so many things that you on your website as well, which we'll talk a bit more about. So I don't want to spoil anything for the listeners. So I'll hold my thoughts there. But just know, everybody, it's very interesting. I definitely recommend that you do visit the website and follow the YouTube channel. Do subscribe. Okay, thank you, Simranjeet. So how's your week been so far?
Oh, that's a nice question. My week's been okay. I've recently tested positive for COVID, which is a bit of a downer. Yeah. And other than that, I'm trying to turn it into a positive though. So albeit I'm positive for COVID, at least I'm still able to function. At least, I have the means to self-isolate without it affecting my schedule so much. At least I'm saving money. I've wasted so much money this December period. So at least for the rest of December, it'll be a bit more relaxed. So that's what I tend to do when when I'm hit with obstacles. I try and turn it into some kind of positive. At least I'm glad I've got a roof over my head where I can self-isolate and stuff. So yeah,
thank you for telling us a bit about that as well. And obviously I'm sorry to hear that you tested positive for COVID-19.
No, it's all right.
But I'm glad to see that it hasn't made you stop what you're doing, and you're not too bogged down with the fact that you have got the virus. I think what's important to talk about here, Simranjeet, is your attitude to life, right? That you said that if you encounter any obstacles, right, you kind of turn it into a positive, and that is so commendable because there are so many struggles and there's so many things that we as humans go through in our lives, and it's really good to see that obviously sometimes you will go through things, but you try to see the positive in that, right, and move forward. And that's why I know that you definitely make a good personal development coach, because you can see and sense that kind of ability to move on and that ability just to see the future, right, and see where it's going to get you. So thank you for that as well. Let's kind of delve into some educational history in section 1 of the interview. So for university then, you talk to us about where you went to university for your undergraduate studies and why you chose it.
Sure. So I went to the University of Bristol for my undergrad. For so long I was set on going to Warwick. I was absolutely 100% sure that I was going to go to Warwick. But when I went to the offer day, I don't know whether this was me being picky, but they have offer days, right, where you go and see the university. Offers and stuff. And by that point I was so sure that I was going to go to Warwick, but then I went to their offer day and it was just a little bit disorganized, but also I felt like because it was all on campus, I thought I might get a bit bored. So then I went to Bristol, and Bristol was actually one of my last minute decisions to apply to. I hadn't even kind of explored the university, anything. And then when I went to the offer day for Bristol, I absolutely loved the city. The law library, if you look at it on Google Maps, on Google Images or something, it absolutely blew me away. I think it's got a great reputation, and also compared to Warwick, it was a city university, and I think that appealed to me more. So if you're listening and you're applying to universities, I think one thing to really consider is whether you want to live in a city where you will have, there may be kind of lectures, or for example, that are further away from you, but you still have that city feeling. There's a lot to do, and for example, nightlife, social life outside of university, there's a lot to do. But whereas in a campus university, I felt like everything's so nearby and everything's so convenient. For example, in Warwick, there's a Tesco's on campus. You can just go there straight away. Whereas in Bristol, you have to walk up some massive hill in order to get to Sainsbury's. So there's that lack of convenience, but also in terms of social life, I have heard people getting a bit bored on campus universities because it's all the same thing.
Yeah, that's quite interesting actually, because I think it's very subjective, right? And it depends on what you want. And I think for me, initially I wanted like I think I've always wanted a city university, but I think I did apply to a mixture of on campus. So I applied to the University of Birmingham, and that's kind of on campus because everything's there. Like if you've got a law lecture, for example, it's right there, and you wake up in your flat, all you got to do is walk across the campus and you're there. But then now I'm actually reading politics at King's College London, and that's a city university because the library is half an hour away from me. I'm in different buildings next semester as well, and I like that because it makes me feel like I'm going somewhere. And if I want to go shopping, I go shopping where I live, as opposed to where the university lives, and I've got to travel 30 to 40 minutes just to get to university. I like that travel element because it's just something that I like, and it makes me feel like I'm actually getting into the mode of being a true student, right?
Yeah, you feel like independent, right? You feel like you're adulting a little bit, like
definitely.
Let me stop off for a little grocery shop. It just feels elite. I love
definitely
it.
feel like you are adulting because there are so many aspects of adulting, like being able to pay your own bills, being able to budget, being able to do your own grocery shopping, and all of that. I feel like having a Tesco on campus, no offense to anybody, and I'm not shunning anybody who did choose that, but for me, it wasn't for me. Right, I want to be able to go further than just those four walls in a sense, right? I want to branch out a little bit. But to those who obviously do want to, head to a campus uni, do head over to my other episode, to another episode of the podcast where I interviewed my cousin Nathaniel, who actually attended the University of Birmingham. So do head over there after this episode, of course, to to listen to his insights and thoughts about his experience. So that's just a brief reference there. But yeah, I think going back to the University of Bristol, I like what you mentioned about the library. Its reputation, that's the same thing for me. And King's actually was my last option, literally my last option. And I went to the open day in 2018 and I hated it. I was like, I'm definitely not coming here, but here I am in second year. So God works in mysterious ways, and it's always good to have an open mind. So thanks once again, Simranjeet, for shedding some insights there and telling us a little bit more about your journey and as to the reason behind your decision. So what was the catalyst then that decided, that kind of caused you to want to study LLB law?
Since I was young, really, I think I'd seen some kind of movies about law and solicitors being absolutely badass, and I thought, I want to do that. And then I think I was wrong in this opinion, but I felt like at the time, and I think maybe this was because of the lack of information available, but I felt like the only way to become a solicitor was to study law at university, and obviously that's not the case. You can do any subject and then switch into becoming a lawyer, and I only learned that when I actually started my first year of university. And I think that was my catalyst. So I thought that obviously to become a solicitor, I'd have to study law. So I went into university kind of knowing my career more than the degree that I was getting involved in, which had its positives but also had quite a few negatives associated with it. And that's quite interesting actually, because I always held the view that you had to study law in order to be any sort of legal professional at university. And then I heard someone who studied like geography or something, and they're doing law, and I actually interviewed someone recently who did geography or something like that, and I'm doing politics, and to see the multiplicity of routes, the various different routes that you can take to get into law, it's amazing, it's fascinating. Now I just want to kind of delve a bit more into those negatives then. So obviously you said the positives, so can you tell us a bit more about the positives and then the negatives obviously of studying law at university, and do you have any regrets? Yeah, sure. So I guess the positives of studying law at university is the skills that it can give. So the fact that it makes you become a very concise writer. It makes you want to becoming more concise but more focused in your answers as well, because if there's any point that you go off on a tangent and it doesn't relate to the question, then you can kind of lose marks and stuff on that. So it really made me more concise. I mean, there was more negatives than positives really for studying law. I didn't enjoy studying law at university, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
Mainly because it lacked that practical application to the actual life of a solicitor. I felt like I was learning subjects like jurisprudence, like the theory of law, and I had no interest in that. And even now as a solicitor, even though I did land law, I've never had to rely on land law as a real estate trainee. In fact, you just relearn things when you're on practical law. You're not expected to memorize the things that you've learned from law school. So I think that was a major negative, and I think it to an extreme, it put me off wanting to become a solicitor as well during university, because I felt like, oh, if this is what the law is, then I don't want it. But my interest in law has kind of increased and then decreased. Like in my final year, actually, it increased a bit more because of the subjects that we took, and I had a bit more kind of freedom in terms of the options that I could pick and the electives. So I went for options like medical law. I went for options like corporate law simulation, and I also did something in my final year. It was a coursework which relied on my pro bono work in the law clinic at my university. So the fact all these kind of practical based subjects really helped me become more interested in law. And whereas if I have my notes in front of me, which is why I did so well in coursework, if I have my notes in front of me and I actually have everything there, then I tend to do better, which is why I picked open book. It was more suited towards my strengths and what I knew my examination technique was like. And also the location of University of Law, it was right on Oxford Street in London. Just Oxford Street was just around the corner, and I love shopping, so I just wanted to go.
Yeah, my friend and I are like not always there, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't get any work, but we are frequent visitors of Oxford Street. We like to, because the thing is, it's in walking distance from our campus, because we're on the central campus, right? So we can just walk there for it's 10-15 minutes. So I think what you said is like it suited your preferences, and that's the important thing I'd echo to the listener. It has to suit what you want to do. So thanks again. Now I just want to just briefly go back to university. Did you were you a part of any societies, and do you think that they're important in terms of really facilitating an interest in certain subjects?
Yeah, sure. I was involved in quite a few at university because I didn't really like hanging out with law students because I felt like they knew everything. I branched out and kind of made new friends from other societies. And even in my first year, I was part of the founding committee to start the Punjabi Society at my university. So my heritage and where I'm from is from Punjab, in the northern part of India. When I went to university, there was no society like that for people of my community. And so we helped found that, and that was really fulfilling. So in my first year, I think I was the media and marketing rep, and then second year I was the media. So we tried to find it in the first year, so I wasn't any kind of committee member then, I was just part of the founding committee. And then the second year I was media and marketing rep, and then my final year I was the president of the society, which was really fulfilling. For example, some of the things that we did was we collaborated with all these other societies at university and created we raised £3,000 for charity at this ball, at this massive kind of Asian ball that celebrated Asian culture. We had kind of Asian fashion there, so I was one of the models, which is something that I wish I could add to my CV. But I was a model for this Asian show with all these other people, and we showcased some really cool Asian fashion, and there was Asian food there. And I'm a drummer as well, so I was my other friend, and we did some drum performances. It was really cool. And that was one of my main highlights as president. My final year was a great send-off before graduating.
That would have been, definitely.
And other things that I did as well was I was part of the Bollywood Dance Society as well. So quite Asian themes going here in terms of the societies that I joined. I think I was a social rep for them, so I was responsible for hosting their socials and stuff. And what else? What other societies was I a part of? I think it was mainly those, because I remember in first year of uni, you go around law fairs and you sign up for all of these societies.
You do.
And then you realise you just don't have the time to do them. So a 2 or 3, I think, was my maximum limit. I couldn't do more than that.
Thank you for sharing that. That does sound very interesting, to how you set up, with others. Obviously you founded that society, and then you worked your way up from media marketing representative to the president, and that shows real growth as well, that people trusted you. They voted you in, I assume, with a vote, or they voted you in as well.
Vote, yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about how you have this Asian ball and you had like it must have been like a cultural it must have been such a cultural day and such such a rich cultural history there, and it's such an experience to really have people like you in the room having the kind of like the food the food that you have and the fashion and things like that, and that would have been interesting. And just to imagine that, right? I'm really happy that happened. And obviously you mentioned that there was an Asian theme going on, but I think that's important because that's who you are, right? That makes it part of your identity, and it would be remiss to not really focus on that. So it's really good that you did stay true to that, right? So
I felt really comfortable, I think, around my own Asian people. I think it's because of the way I grew up in quite an Asian kind of, like, my school, there was a lot more Asians there, so I think I naturally just gravitated towards that element of comfort when I moved to university as well.
That sounds really interesting, and it's good that really aided you. And as you said, it was a good send-off, right? Just before you graduated, you were able to kind of participate in such an exciting and really rewarding event as well.
100%.
So happy that happened. So just briefly then, I want to just talk about A-levels, because I have a lot of the listeners are actually 18, like they're actually kind of like doing A-levels, or they're about to do A-levels as well. So what did you take for your A-level subjects, and why did you choose them?
Yeah, sure. So I picked English literature, history and biology for A-level. I got A's in all of them, if you're interested. I don't know whether they do A's anymore for A-levels, because I know they've changed GCSEs to numbers and
like the 9 to 1 system
and stuff. But so why did I choose these A-levels? In all honesty, I loved those subjects, and all my favourites when I was studying GCSE and doing my GCSEs, and I did well in those subjects as well. So it was quite an easy decision for me. It wasn't so much like I was agonizing over different topics. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I knew in particular English lit and history. Everyone says, if you're studying law, definitely do English literature and history. That you can do any subject, in my opinion, but those were the ones that, I mean, people said it will help you in terms of your essay writing, and to an extent, yes, but writing law essays is so different to any other subject I've ever had to do. So I didn't really felt like it was that transferable at all, if anything. I think they were just really interesting subjects, and luckily, I have a strong interest in literature and history, especially biology. I have a special place in my heart for biology. I have no idea why I'm interested in it, but I am. And I mean, I actually miss, like, this sounds so geeky, but that's the one subject where I missed reading the textbook because it was just so interesting. But those are why I did my A-levels. Luckily they were they were subjects that I enjoyed, and I did well in them as well, so that was good.
Just taking a sip of water there. Thank you again for shedding some light on that. I think A-levels are really important, right? And I think that what you said about doing English literature, you said you did history and biology. I actually did English literature as well, so I can share the same sentiment that really did help with my essays. Obviously I don't really know if it will relate to law personally yet, because I haven't got there yet, but when I do, I'll let you know if it actually helped me. But I would say though that English and writing and framing essays does help you in terms of your politics essays. Obviously they are vastly different subjects, but they're very different subjects, but they still do coincide slightly with the way that you have to structure a paragraph, justify your argument really into with quotations. So although it's not going to be quotations from, say, a literary text, it's quotations from a reference that you've chosen, right, to talk about democracy, for example. So they are quite similar in those aspects. And what you said as well, that you didn't really think it was transferable, and that's quite interesting as well, because a lot of people do. There are these kind of myths, or there are these kind of myths or ideas that do linger or lurk, that do exist about, what subjects that you should study if you are gonna, if you are gonna embark on a career in law. But as I say again, as you said as well, just to echo that, it's subjective, it's up to you. As you said that you did well in those subjects at GCSE, and so it was only natural for you, and you were agonizing over choosing them. It was only natural for you to go on and choose them. That was me, right? Law, I didn't do it at GCSE, but English and I didn't do politics either, but English I did, and I did well at GCSE. I thought, you know what, that's going to be a guaranteed, good mark. So obviously you mentioned that you got A's, and thanks for mentioning that, because I now want to ask this then. So what tips would you give to students, right? This isn't a question I'm giving you, I'm just really, I'm sure you'll know me by now. I'll just add questions throughout the interview. But so what kind of tips would you give to students who aren't doing as well as they want to at the moment, and let's say they're in year 13, right, and they're going to be doing the real exam soon? What can they do now to get to those A's and A stars?
Yeah, I think three things was firstly understanding what my revision technique was, what suited me, how could I revise. And during my A levels, this is going to sound dry as hell, but I would honestly have my textbook on the side, and I would pace around my room and I would try to memorize everything that was in that textbook. Absolutely. I would be talking to myself. So I'd be like, Sim, what's, I don't know, mitochondria? I don't know what it is now. I've completely forgotten it. That sounds so dumb, but I've 100% forgotten it. And I'd go around, I'd just pace around my room and just try and remember everything I could about mitochondria. And then I'd go back to my textbook, read it, pick out the things that I missed out, highlighted it, then do it again, pace around my room, try and memorize everything. But then second thing that I did that really helped me push my grades was mock papers, specimen papers. Sometimes my school, I don't know what happened, my school, man, honestly, I have issues, but they would provide some exam papers, but not all of them. So I'd go out of my way and I'd go on, I think it was like the OCR website at the time, and I would search for all of the exam papers myself, and I found additional ones myself and I printed them out and I did them myself. So there are resources available on the internet if your school, unlike my one, was unwilling to help out in a lot of respects. I think what they did was they were they were gatekeeping them to use at mock exams later on. I felt like it wasn't helpful to just spring a kind of mock exam on me a couple of weeks before the exam. I want to be prepared way before then. So I think that's why they were keeping them, but I got hold of them anyway beforehand, so there's that. And so firstly, revision technique, secondly, mock exams, and thirdly, actually approaching your teachers if you are struggling about a particular topic. It can be during, I know it sounds super geeky, but during your break, during your lunchtime, any free period that you've got, it is really important to reach out. And if, for example, your teacher at school is crap, we've been there have been teachers at school who are honestly just not the best teachers. They can be really unapproachable sometimes, or they just don't know what they're doing. I know, for example, the teacher who I hated the most at school, did not like her at all. I still don't like her to this day. If I saw her in Sainsbury's, I'd give her a side eye. But she got an E in GCSE physics, but she ends up teaching physics. I'm just a bit why? How are you teaching this anyway? So she wasn't a great teacher, so I went to go see another teacher, and I didn't really care how it looked. I was like, I wanted to go see this teacher because I've heard she's good and I want advice from her, and any good teacher would provide advice, no matter whether they're in your class or not. So definitely try and reach out, use your contacts, use your friends as well. If you've got friends at school, hopefully you all do, and they they can really help you out as well. You can do group studying together, and hopefully that helps as well. But those were the things that really helped me at school to get the grades that I wanted to do. But a lot of it did involve a lot of independent work outside of school as well. There were times where the teachers would say, why haven't you done this homework? And I'd say, well, I'm actually doing stuff that's examinable rather than this piece of... I was a bit of, not a rebel at school, but I just kind of took things in my own independent path. It was a risk that paid off for me, but don't do it if you feel like it's not going to pay off. Because,
those are some great tips and some great insights once again. Very interesting to listen to. Talking about how those three important things. Number one, you need to have a revision technique. You need to know what you're doing, and obviously in your case you memorize the textbook. And I think there's a stigma that memorizing the textbook is geeky, and I think for me, I've been called a geek, but I'd rather be a geek than someone who has no clue what's happening, right? 100%. I'd rather be there. And I think obviously this person used it as a pejorative, but I took it as a positive because thank you, and that actually spurred me on to go and do better than I was currently doing. So thanks a lot. So I think that people always judge people who are seen in the library sometimes, not always, but there is this thing about judging people who are sitting down with a textbook, but those people probably getting top grades, right? So maybe maybe we should try to emulate them, right, and what they do. And
I actually got a flashback from school actually, because as you're saying that, during kind of year 12, year 13, at the early stages of the year when there's no pressure to get things done in terms of exams, I remember in my free periods, usually people used to use their free periods at this time to just chill, hang out with friends, mess around. And I remember in year 13 year 12 as well, I was really, really determined to get the good grades. and I'd go to the library, and honestly, all the people who were labelled the geeks at school, like the ones who were like proper nerdy, were there, and I was one of them, and I was like, oh my god, I feel like such a nerd, like I'm in the library so early before anyone else. But honestly, I'm so glad that I did that. I'm so glad that, you know, if my friends were saying, oh yo, let's hang out or whatever, I said no, I actually want to go to the library during my free period and just try and get stuff done. And it really put me ahead, which I'm grateful for. So sometimes you've got to stick to your own gut, even if it means, you know, turning down things. And it didn't mean that I absolutely, you know, focused on work. There were, I think on Friday free periods, when I was ever free on a Friday, I'd use that as a day to like hang out with my friends and stuff. But during the working week, I would kind of just say, no, I'm going to go to the library.
Yeah, that shows your dedication, really, and you know, you had a goal in mind, as you say, and as you implore the listeners to stick to their gut, right? So it's about, sometimes you are going to have to make sacrifices, you are going to have to, you know, step away from your friends and just say, okay guys, I want to just go and do this by myself. I wasn't called a geek, it was a nerd, but whatever it was, she didn't mean it in a positive manner, but thanks a lot, because I don't, you know, I mean, as I said, like, people try to label you with, you know, certain things, but I just wanted to get to where I want to be. I want to become a barrister, and there are certain things I have to do. If it means reading, and if it means, you know, reading more, arriving at the library before hours, then that might have to be what needs to be done. Not saying I do that now, everyone. I'm just saying those are some examples. But I do actually try to make more time for studying, right? So obviously, currently, I wouldn't arrive at the library before hours because I just wouldn't. But, you know, I'm talking about what you want to do, right? Those are some examples. But for me, I know that for me, though, all joke aside, I will actually try to. I've been waking up early this week, especially. I've got loads of exams, loads of essays, and trying to get loads of work done. Thank you very much. So that's what I've been doing. I've been making my own revision program and just going back as well. You said to mock papers, again, I completely agree. And really, as you said, really approach your teachers. And the same goes for anybody in university. Approach your seminar leaders, approach 100%. Your module conveners, approach those who can really help you to get where you need to be, clarify those subjects that you are struggling with, and that's so important. And as you said as well, you know, you took the time to sit by yourself and get that work done, and it really paid off for you, so that's really glad to see. So then just the last question in this section then, what tips would you give to A-level students who will be applying to university? I'm gonna say next year, because I feel like people have already applied this year, so
so I'd say in terms of tips, I'd say, I mean, obviously this is COVID permitting, but try and visit the campus that you're interested in, to help give you a feel for whether you'd like studying at the university. I think try and prioritize what you want out of university experience. So categories that I prioritized at the time were reputation of the university. I prioritized whether I wanted city or a city campus, or what's the other one? A city or a campus.
Or a campus,
And those are two of the things that I prioritized. I also looked at location. So I personally didn't want to study in London, but I didn't want to go beyond the Midlands. I felt like the north was a bit too far up. So that's another thing that you can take into account as well. I would say, I mean, to be fair, with my choices, I think I was really realistic with 4 of them in terms of whether I would get through or not. And then my 5th one, I wasn't really sure which one to go for, so I just went for Oxford. That's why not just apply. And I look back, and I should have applied for one of the lesser known universities. I applied for, I think it was like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it was called Brasenose.
Sounds familiar.
It was the one like David Cameron, like all these top politicians like went to.
Oh yeah,
and, I don't know why I applied for that one. I should have gone for like a lesser known college at Oxford, and maybe I would have stood more of a chance, because that's what I only regret in hindsight, but I'm happy I went for it. At least I can say I was an Oxbridge reject. That was my high flying one, but I'd say be realistic with your choices, and if you can afford to, you know, have one that's a bit high flying, then go for it.
I actually applied to Oxford as well, and to be honest, obviously I enjoy the experience, right? I'm not too sour over not getting in, because I'm really enjoying where I am at the moment.
I'm so happy.
Like I'm not like, oh my gosh, no, it's over. But at the time though, however, I, you know, obviously to do law, you need to do the LNAT, right? And my college, they didn't tell me about it within enough time for me to basically have it done. They didn't give me enough time. So I didn't obviously have the necessary preparation going forward. But you know what, it all worked out. So I can also say that I'm an Oxbridge reject, but I'm not really upset about it. I'm just living life as it comes. Maybe I'll reapply one day. We never know, right?
Yeah,
and maybe I'll be there, and if I am, have fun. If I'm not, well, I'll still be living. So that's the thing as well. Like, if you don't get into university, it's not the end of the world.
100%.
It's okay. You will be okay. Just take a deep breath.